Welcome to the first episode of the Triple S podcast, where we provide analysis on the scoreboards, the standings, and the statistics. I cover college football, the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball. I'm going to break down the news, preview and recap the biggest games of the week, and I do deep dives into specific teams. I'm very excited to do this, and I'm very thankful to anyone who's watching. We're going to be doing this twice a week, Tuesday and Friday, starting next week. So let's get started with the first one. We got big news out this week, not to mention training camps going on in all levels of football. So I think the biggest news in this month is one of the biggest trades of all time, where Juan Soto goes to the San Diego Padres. This was first reported by Jeff Passan of ESPN. Juan Soto and Josh Bell were traded from the Nationals to the Padres for a mix of 6 players, including Luke Voit, the first baseman and DH, known for playing with the Yankees a couple years ago. This happened after Soto turned down a $440 million long-term deal with the Nats, and the Nats couldn't top that, so they had to send him out. And Soto's just a special player. You know, his statistics are down a little bit, but this happens at the beginning of the season. He's going to pick up. And still, he has a 161 OPS, which is still well above average. OPS is on base plus slugging, but where average is 100. And you can see he's on pace to improve, really, because in last season he had a 200 OPS, and there's no signs of him slowing down. He's in his age 26 season, and he hasn't even reached his age 30 season. And this is just somebody who the Padres are really going to need. And to catch up to the Dodgers, because they already have Tatis, they already have Machado, but this is just another slugger in that lineup to really combat because they're in this amazing NL West with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers have just so many good bats, and frankly, so do the Giants. People forget about the Giants, but so do they. So I think that this is a great deal for the Padres to try to keep up. Juan Soto's had a crazy last 2 seasons. I mean, and as I said, he's not even reaching the top of his potential. We could see him have a potentially Hall of Fame career. However, the Nats do get a good haul with a good mix of rookies and veterans. Most notably, as I said, Luke Voit. He's an instant starter. The Nationals traded Josh Bell alongside Juan Soto, and I think that Luke Voit is just going to fill that first base spot that Josh Bell had immediately. He's dependable. I really like using this stat because I think it's a really good baseline statistic to know. It's just a catch-all. He's dependable with a 109 OPS plus a season ago. He's a good defensive arm there at first base. He can also play DH. And Josh Bell was an impactful player. And I think that Luke Voit can be just as impactful there. So I really like this trade. Obviously, it's hard to have an assessment on this, who won, who lost, because the Nationals, they had to get rid of Juan Soto after he gave up on them with turning down that deal. So, I think they did the best with their situation. But obviously, on paper, the Padres are getting an absolute phenom. I think he's going to have a Hall of Fame career, and I think that this helps the Padres inch a little bit closer to the Dodgers there in the NL West. And in other news around the sports leagues, the NFL is almost starting. You saw the Hall of Fame game a couple weeks ago. Just the pathetic Jaguars against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders took the win on that one. I really liked how Jarrett Stidham played back up for the Raiders behind Derek Carr. I know it was against the second teamers, but he really showed some potential, and he's still a young player. And while I don't think he's going to be starter material in the next couple of years, I do think he might fit into a Jay Cutler type of role, where he is not a type of player, but a C or a B type of quarterback. And so I really liked what I saw out of him. And now we're getting to NFL training camp. There's big news, big injuries, big position battles. One of the biggest is that Michael Thomas is practicing again without issue in training camp. That is huge for those New Orleans Saints because they did get Jarvis Landry. Sorry, I'm going to clear my throat here a little bit. But they did get Jarvis Landry. But I think having a QB1, a veteran, a leader like Michael Thomas out there on the field, it's going to help the whole team, and especially going to help Jameis Winston. I mean, you see how Jameis Winston has struggled here. He had that infamous 30-30 season, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and he hasn't really played much since he came over from Tampa Bay. And I want to see him improve in that role, and I think Michael Thomas is just a huge part of that. You can just lob that thing up there, and he's going to get it. I mean, he's a real all-around player, and I think it's so important that he came back from that injury now, and that he's practicing without issue. Again, as I said, this is all according to Greg Rosenthal, NFL News, who's been covering this whole camp situation. And another big injury news, however more negative, is that Matthew Stafford, the winning quarterback in last year's Super Bowl, is suffering with elbow pain after an elbow treatment in the offseason. It's going to be a situation that has to be monitored a lot. He's dealing with that elbow pain. He hasn't thrown much, and the Rams really don't have that backup. They don't have a dependable backup. And this is a team that's expected to go deep in the playoffs again, and they have the roll around them. But if Matthew Stafford's not healthy, if he has to miss a couple games, if he's just simply not on, because that can happen to players in a not very serious injury if you look at it face forward, but it can affect them in all sorts of fields. And I think that that's a big deal for the Rams here. Because, he's just such an impactful player. But he is getting up there on years, and I think that we may see the Rams go, maybe not in the first or second round, but in the fourth or fifth round, pick a QB, because this really is concerning. I don't think it's something that can just wash off. Elbow is a huge part. It's in his throwing arm, and I think that's a big deal, that the situation will continue to be monitored, of course, by both the Rams, but also by the media, and I think that that's something that you should keep your eye on. And I think another thing you should keep your eye on is the QB battle in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett is starting with the third teamers, not the second teamers. The third teamers. He's behind Mason Rudolph right now. And Mason Rudolph, the only thing he's really famous for is that clobbering he got from Myles Garrett. He hasn't really done much more. And Mitchell Trubisky, practicing with the first teamers, he looks like he's going to be the starter. And so that means that the Steelers are just relying on their defense, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a Mitchell Trubisky hater. I don't think he's a very good quarterback, and I think he's maybe a game manager type, but not explosive in any way. So while their defense is stacked, they're definitely going to miss Big Ben. And that AFC North division is something where you cannot blink. They have the Ravens. They have the Bengals, who just came off a Super Bowl, and they have the Browns. Those are teams with amazing quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Deshaun Watson for the foreseeable future, respectively, on those three teams. And I think the Pittsburgh is definitely going to take a step back if they do go with Mitchell Trubisky and not with a more risky player like the rookie Kenny Pickett, who's apparently not in position to do that right now. And going down a level in amateur football, college football is also going to start here in a couple weeks. We'll be discussing the Backyard Brawl, West Virginia versus Virginia Tech here in a couple weeks, because that's the first major football game this season. But the preseason coaches poll has come out, and we'll see how the coaches want to stack these teams up. And it looks like Alabama is overwhelmingly, again, the number one team. They got 56 first place votes, compared to just Georgia's 6 and Ohio State's 5. And, I think that that's significant, because it shows that these coaches, this is simply a runaway. Because Ohio State and Georgia, they're very talented teams here. Can't forget that. And Alabama, as Coach Saban said, they were in a rebuilding year last year, but they still made it to the finals, and that weighs heavy in the minds of coaches because they overwhelmingly chose him to be their number one. However, the defending national champs, Georgia, is ranked third. The last time, a defending champion was lowered in the top two was in the 2020 preseason polls when LSU was fifth. This is the year where they lost Joe Burrow and they lost just a whole busload of players. And that year, LSU, even it was a COVID year, so they went 5-5. They went 500 there. I don't think the Bulldogs will be that bad, but the amount of talent that they returned, concerns some because they had an absolutely star-studded. I think it was a record that they set 15 players were drafted, and they had to rely a lot on their defense last year, and now you can start poking holes in that defense. I think they're still going to be an elite team, but I think it shows that the coaches noticed too that you can start poking holes in that defense. It's not a iron wall anymore. And then on the offensive side, I don't know how much to trust in Stetson Bennett. He did not show me a lot last year. And so I think if maybe a couple teams can get there, can beat the defense on their bad days, I think that Georgia, they could drop some games, some high-profile games, but also some games you wouldn't expect on the calendar. They play Florida, they play Auburn every year. It's the SEC. Any weekend can be impactful. Sorry about that. And I think the biggest snub in this coaches poll, they did not make the top 25. It was definitely Penn State. They were almost there. They're 27th. But they did not make the top 25. And they had a bad year last year. There's no doubt about it. But that's only because QB injury. Injury just plagued their entire roster, but especially in that QB spot. But I think they're star-studded. I mean, you look at the Big Ten, and you get wowed by Wisconsin. Not much Wisconsin, but by Ohio State. I mean, C.J. Stroud's just going to light it up this year, as well as that whole team. You get wowed by Michigan. They have two great quarterbacks, and Michigan made the playoffs last year. But you can't forget in that Big Ten East, Penn State. Penn State is a veteran team. They have solid coaching by James Franklin. And I expect them to be a top 15 team. I don't think they're just going to be delegated to a back spot. I think they could make a run for the Big Ten championship. And, this is a team that they do have to deal with that star-studded Big Ten. But they're up for the challenge. Not by being the flashiest, but I think they are up to the challenge. And I think a big test for them early on in the season is that now yearly rivalry against Auburn. It is in Auburn, Alabama, in the Deep South. Fans are going to be going crazy in there early in the season, and I think that that's going to show, but I have confidence that they're going to be a top 15, top 10 team. We'll be discussing more expectations for college football teams next Tuesday, but that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for listening to the Triple S podcast, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Peace.